Signora's the one behind all this? Ugh, not her again!
Have you learned your lesson now? The way you follow me around like a dark shadow. Not even ashes will remain!
Hey everyone, Sean here, and today in this video it's very spoiler heavy, so obviously for those who haven't played the latest Genshin Impact story, we're going to the conclusion of Inazuma for the most part. Please go play that for those who do play Genshin Impact and come back to here so that way we can have a fun little discussion regarding to Signora, which yes, we've seen from the trailer. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the bell notification to all. Really do appreciate it, guys, because that's the best way pretty much to know when I put out a new video. So let's get into it. Of course, you know, there is the big question out there as to as people are talking about it as of late. It's a hot topic within the Genshin community, and I wanted to get my 2 cents in there. I wanted to throw in my opinions and throw out some theories for you guys, and we can all have like a little fun discussion regarding to Signora and I guess the rest of the future or whatever of Genshin Impact of sorts. Anyways, is she dead? I think for the most part she is dead. I mean, it seems like the majority, quote unquote, thinks she's dead. The Wikipedia for Genshin considers her dead, so she you know, the quote is that she got executed by Raiden Shogun, aka Raiden A, I guess. But yes, she essentially did get executed of sorts by the Shogun herself, which was just surprising to me when it happened. I was like, what? You know. So I think the gist of things, yes, I think she's dead, but there are possibilities that could happen, of course, with this little incident here. So of course, one way is that, well, she's dead and that's it. You know, even though she's this well-developed character of sorts, you know, there's some time put into her with the designs, and I think for the most part she's just gonna be a boss character for farming purposes, and that's the end of her. You know, that's one route, and I think that's the route I pretty much am gonna choose, just because I don't know, that's just what it seems like for the most part. But there are some theories that I wanted to, of course, share as well. And another possibility for Signora is that, of course, she isn't dead, right? How did she survive, or how did she devise this sort of, you know, fail-safe of sorts? I think could be spread out to different other theories too, but I think for the most part, this could be, if she is alive, this could have just been a puppet body, since, you know, Raiden Shogun, if you looked into the story, what it has the ability of some degree to create puppet bodies, or has some sort of technology to create these bodies. And so, point being, Fatui got a hold of this somehow, maybe from herself, or Raiden herself, or they just figured out their own way to create bodies, and this body is essentially just Signora controlling the body, and you know, and that was disposed of by the Shogun, and she's back in Snezhnaya, whatever, and she's safe and sound for the most part. But there is no scene sort of pointing towards that. It seems like they're kind of like leaving it up in the air for now, just to see if or how the audience will react. And obviously, there are a lot of people who do want Signora to come back, because a lot of people wanted her to be playable and such. Now, I don't know how, you know, Honkai Impact handles with these sort of characters, right? Do they actually have well-designed characters, or characters that have time put to them considerably, but then just die, you know, and then they never become playable? That's my sort of personal question for Honkai Impact 3rd. because that's another game that MiHoYo does, you know, or did develop, and I think it's still updated, right? Continuously. Yes, they do, I guess, because you know they did a collaboration with Genshin as of recent. Also, I wanted to throw this in here. I wanted to point out some of the things that came out from the final moments of Signora, particularly with Raiden Shogun. Right when she was stepping in, Signora was in desperation mode, and she pretty much did one final move, which looked similar to me with the move that she did with Venti, where she palm striked Venti's gut in order to grab the gnosis out of him. And that was pretty much what looked like she was trying to do with Raiden Shogun, just out of desperation, try to grab the gnosis from Raiden Shogun without even knowing, because long ago Raiden Shogun already gave her gnosis away to her most trusted friend, which is Yae Miko. And later on, we all know Yae Miko gave that away to Scaramouche, which has a pretty cool looking cool connection with Raiden Shogun later on, once you find out. But anyway, it's just funny to me that it looked like with that didn't know about the gnosis being already given away. So you know, within that desperation, she just acted frantically, and I guess, you know, that's how she goes out on, if she is completely like gone. You also have to remember that, you know, Genshin Impact is pretty conservative when it comes to not only the fan service side of things to some extent, but also the violence. There's no blood or anything like that, so I don't think they'll at least do any gory scenes. And maybe, you know, they didn't want to just show like a dead body of sorts, like just right in there, like graphically in a graphic matter. So maybe they did the whole disintegration thing as a means of showing death on screen. And so yeah, I mean, that could also be like a sign that, you know, once people kind of get over the copium, that yeah, Signora is gone. Maybe that's another sign that she is gone for good. But otherwise, yeah, there is a theory that she is going to rise from the ashes like a phoenix would. So I guess you know, that is a question itself, but I guess it depends on that. I feel that for the most part she's dead, but again, you know, with this theory or possibility or route, she could be alive for that reason. You know, she could have used a puppet body to, you know, be as failsafe of sorts, and she's safe and sound. Now, by the time this revelation happens, right, if she does live somehow through this ordeal, whether she used the puppet body or not, maybe she has the power to come back, rise from the ashes, and maybe reborn like a phoenix of sorts. Because if you look into the lore of Signora, it is sort of talked about in a way that she's like an undying flame or something like that, and she's like themed around like a moth or butterfly, right? So and when it comes to certain mythologies, I guess it can be treated like, well, essentially a phoenix of sorts. I guess depends on which mythology they come from, or if there is such a mythology that has butterflies come back from the dead and stuff like that, and they are pretty much immortal in the way, but they have to go through all the stages again, and maybe you know, this could happen with Signora, right? She could reincarnate herself into something different, and that's where maybe that could happen too. Maybe Signora is going to be playable, but it's not going to be the same exact Signora that we know as of right now. That Signora that we know, the Crimson Witch, you know, as she is called, that's going to be the boss character that we are gonna farm forever, you know, for materials and such. The next Signora, the playable Signora, will be something different, and she will be using, for the most part, a cryo delusion, which is essentially a dark version of a vision. She was given a delusion because, again, if you look into the lore of Signora, she used to be human, who somehow, at some point, threw away her mortality and became immortal in a way. and that's how she lived through like hundreds and 500 years or something like that. Thanks to the what do you call the liquid flame body of sorts, and of course I think Fatui had a hand in that. But they handed her the cryo delusion in order to control her powers, help control her heat, essentially, and she doesn't go just rampant and destroy the world, essentially, because, you know, during her mortal days, she fell in love with a man, and that man died in the war of sorts against the monsters or whatever, and she grew with vengeance, and she wants to essentially avenge her loved one through just by destroying a lot of shit. And so she has become essentially the Crimson Witch, or Undying Butterfly, or Undying Flame, or she has a lot of nicknames, I think, so it's hard to kind of pick and choose which one exactly. Anyways, she becomes that. She becomes godly, not a god, but godlike, and which is, you know, why she can even keep up with the archons and such, or has a presence of a goddess of sorts, and can even talk to, well, people like Zhongli early on, and take on people like Venti and such. But anyway, that's the Signora that we know as of right now. But again, once we do see her come back, there could be some ideas there. Again, she could use her delusion, which is cryo, right? So she's for the most part going to be a cryo-based character, but there could be an idea that her elemental burst could be pyro, could be a pyro-based elemental burst. So that could be that whole, like, maybe that revolutionary new gameplay added in there with the dual elements of sorts for one character. Some characters will have two elements at some point, maybe, possibly. That could be a thing, and those characters are gonna power creep the rest of them, because that's how it works with gacha games, at least for a lot of gacha games anyway. And hopefully by then, some characters will get buffed. Not really. Not gonna hold my breath on it, but anyway, we're gonna have characters with possibly dual elements. And, you know, Signora could be the first, with a cryo-based skill and then a pyro-based elemental burst. But her design is going to be quite different, I think. And I think she's going to be going through more like of her, you know, not maybe like her younger self, right? So we're going to have like a younger version of the Signora that we know. Could be the teenage girl version, or it could be even like a little girl version. I don't know, like a lolly version of Signora, and that could be the playable version that people may so desire for the future. So that could be a possibility. Maybe that version will only have the cryo delusion, right? Since, well, she died. I don't know. So maybe she lost her flame somewhere, and she has to sort of grow it back somehow, you know, by giving it time or something like that. I don't know. Maybe the story could go many directions, and so it could spawn many possibilities. But yeah, I think for the most part, even if she does come back, she's probably gonna be a different Signora, maybe, and the playable version of Signora won't quite be the same as the Signora that people desire. Again, with the whole the booba and the flames and the big old Crimson Witch transformation and everything, the big butterfly mode or whatever you call it, you know. So her secondary form, that could be a thing. I mean, she is pretty much themed around a moth or a butterfly, because if you go through her fight, she does have, you know, her first form, of course, her primary form, and then when you beat her at a certain point, she'll go into a ice cocoon. And then she changes to the big old butterfly Crimson Witch thing, and yeah, that's how it works. So maybe, yeah, you know, and we all know about the butterfly thing with the forms and everything. There's a caterpillar, and then the butterfly, well, the cocoon, and then the butterfly. So I think we could see something like that again with this playable version of Signora of sorts. You know, that could be an interesting idea. So I think that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, essentially, the rule for right now, I guess, according to people in Genshin or the community, is that you must have a vision in order to be playable, to be a playable character. Now, this is interesting because we do have one playable Fatui Harbinger as of current, and that is Child, aka Tarkaglia. Child is someone who does have a Hydro Vision, and that's the only thing we get to see from this Child. Kind of funny, right? And we get to see only see him use Hydro. He does have a delusion of sorts, which is Electro, which is why you get to see the second where you get to see that during the secondary or second part of the boss fight for Child. You've seen that form many times, but you don't really think about it nowadays because it's just kind of just there for farming. But yes, he does have a delusion himself. He does have two elements himself. He is one of the more powerful units within the Harbingers. And yeah, so he does have Hydro. He has a Hydro Vision, and then he has an Electro Delusion. I guess he's not your average Joe, I guess. So he can use a delusion no problem, and he doesn't age or anything like that, unlike the other average Joes. Unfortunately, like Tepe, for example, which is very sad. It was like one of the NPCs I actually kind of cared at some point until, well, yeah, he very unfortunate for him to go, but he essentially is a device to tell, hey, this is what happens to the average Joes, the average humans, I guess. Or that could be a fake, like a cheaper version of a delusion. I don't know. Or yeah, it could be the same delusion, but your ordinary person can't really handle such power, over time. Anyway, now because Signora doesn't officially have a vision herself, because she has a cryo delusion, which Takalagaya doesn't use, or Child doesn't use his vision or delusion, excuse me. I think Signora kind of gets booted out of that possibility because she's using a delusion, and also her pyro powers aren't vision based. She actually has pyro based powers herself somehow. So I think she's ruled out for that sense, unless they just change the rules and they say, fuck it, we gotta put in Signora because money talks, right? So that could be a possible route for our Undying Flame, or Crimson Witch, we could say. So I guess, yeah, I think, it's hard to say, really, officially, right? But personally, I do think she's still dead for the most part, despite all the other theories I mentioned. There's still other possibilities I haven't mentioned quite yet, but yeah, it'll be maybe for another video, or I don't know. But I think for the most part, she is dead, and she'll just be a boss character. And even if she does come back, she won't be the same character that we people desired. So I think she'll have, maybe she can use her delusion as a playable character, but I think she'll just be a cryo character either way, and she really doesn't have a weapon on her either, so it would be weird to see her use a weapon. She only has her hands. She just has magical powers, and unless they change the rule, or I guess she can use a catalyst and it just won't appear with her, I guess. But she doesn't really use any weapons, right? She doesn't even have like a spell book on her. She is that powerful. So I guess so. That could also be a reason why, or an indication that she's not going to be playable. I just guess that some characters aren't just going to be playable. They're just going to be those characters, right? as much as people want her to be playable. Yeah, so but even if she becomes playable, I think she's going to be fully cryo for the most part, and they'll have some sort of story that yes, she did die technically, but then she came back, she's doing the whole butterfly thing, and the Signora that's going to be playable is just a weakened version of Signora from before, and that's the playable version that you can have in your hands, just a weaker version of her essentially. So I think that could be a possible route for the most part. So two main routes. That yes, she is dead for the most part, which I think that's the route going on forward. But if she is alive, or there's gonna be two other routes, I guess. She is alive but still not playable, and then she is alive, and not only that, she's playable. But even if she is playable, she's not going to be the same exact Signora that people so desired from before. You know, the big boss version, right? I think that's the Crimson Witch Signora, and that'll stay forever be a boss. While the playable Signora is just going to be this ice-based or cryo-based weaker version of Signora, because she's just recovering from her death, or recent death, thanks to the hands of Raiden Shogun. So I can go on about this for longer, but I want to leave it to you guys, for those who do play Genshin and who have been playing with the story and stuff like that, or who beat the Inazuma arc. And I want to hear your guys' opinions and theories about Signora herself. What do you guys think? Is she dead? Is she alive? Is she going to be playable later on? Is she not going to be playable ever? You know, anything like that, leave it down below. If you're going to like and subscribe, all that fun stuff. And really do appreciate you guys. So this has been my sort of Hawke Talks. I know I've been rambling on about Signora, but you know, hey, I love story and Genshin Impact as well. So slap the two together, and I can definitely talk about this for maybe a couple hours, a good couple hours at least. But anyway, wanted to leave that with you guys for you to discuss in the comment section, and I will definitely read them. I'll probably you know, engage in there as well, as long as it's friendly and reasonable. But anyways, let's leave it on that. And so, thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the next video. Sean out.